The brave young men had protected the village from the werewolf, but now one of them had to take its place. The brothers did not sleep that night, haunted by the man's words. "Thank you for freeing me from this curse, but know this, it must now be passed on to one of you." Kofi, the oldest brother, lay awake, his mind racing. He couldn't take it anymore. He turned to his brothers and whispered, "Are you awake?" "Yes," they both replied. Kofi sighed deeply. "We need to talk." They sat up, huddled together in the darkness. "We trusted the elders. We believed we were fighting to save our village, but they knew one of us would end up cursed." Mubarak nodded. "We have to find the old woman. She's the only one who can help us." "But how?" Chijioke asked. "Last time she found us. How do we find her?" "We have to try," Mubarak said. "We can't just wait for the curse to take one of us. I have a plan." The three brothers huddled closer. "We'll abduct Elder Kwame," Mubarak said. "He's the highest-ranking member of the council. He'll know where to find the old woman." "Are we really going to do this?" Chijioke asked, doubt creeping into his voice. "We have no choice," Kofi replied. "It's our only chance." The triplets agreed and finally lay down again, but sleep was a long time coming. Their hearts were heavy with bitterness and betrayal, but they knew they needed all their strength for the next part of their plan. You are watching The Tales of the Savannah. Subscribe and be part of the tribe. Now let's get back to the story. The next day, the young men woke up and solidified their plan. They decided to grab Elder Kwame that night while he was coming back from the council meeting. Since Elder Kwame lived the farthest, he would eventually separate from the group. That would be their chance. Throughout the day, the young men acted normal, smiling and receiving gifts from the villagers for saving their lives, but inside they were anxious and determined. When night fell, the young men hid in the shadows, watching the council members go their separate ways. "There he is," Kofi whispered. Elder Kwame, alone and whistling a tune, started down the path to the river. "Where is he going?" Mubarak whispered. "Should we grab him now or follow him?" Chijioke asked. "Let's follow him," Kofi decided. "Maybe we'll uncover more secrets. This village seems full of them." The young men followed Elder Kwame like cats on the prowl. Their training came in handy as they blended into the forest, unnoticed by Elder Kwame. He picked up his pace, signaling he had a long way to go and needed to return before sunrise. The young men kept up. After what felt like an hour, Elder Kwame stopped by the side of a mountain. The young men watched as he picked up a small stick and chanted something. He tapped the rock in a pattern, and it slid open. Elder Kwame entered, and the young men were stunned. "We need to follow him," Kofi said. "How?" asked Mubarak, the youngest. "I heard every word of his chant," Chijioke said, surprising his brothers. "They were too far away. How was that even possible?" "I saw the sequence of his taps," Kofi added. There was no time to question how. The young men moved to the entrance. Chijioke repeated the chant, "Fenda koi ora, salimona," and Kofi confidently tapped the rock. To their delight, it rolled open. Weapons in hand, they entered the cave. Ahead, there was a faint light. The cave walls were covered in strange symbols that glowed softly, emitting an eerie light. The air was cool and damp, and the sound of dripping water echoed through the cavern. As they moved deeper, the passage widened into a large chamber. In the center was an altar, surrounded by ancient relics and artifacts. Elder Kwame stood at the altar, speaking to a shadowy figure. The young men exchanged looks and crept closer, ready for whatever they might face. This hidden place held the answers they sought, and they were prepared to uncover the village's darkest secrets. As they moved closer, the shadowy figure spoke. "Welcome, brothers. I must say well done for being the first group to figure out the secret." The old woman threw some powder into the fire, lighting up the entire chamber. The triplets were exposed. "I had a suspicion you knew about the curse and led you to me," she said. The young men were stunned. They were now trapped in this cave with a witch, an elder, and who knows what else lurking in the tunnels. "You have to lift the curse from us," Kofi shouted. The old woman laughed. "Let me tell you a story," she began. "A long time ago, a severe drought hit this land. Many lost their lives to hunger and thirst. Then one day, a man came to the village, well-dressed and healthy. The villagers gathered around him, hoping he had come to save them. He sat with the council elders and offered them a deal they knew they couldn't refuse: one soul every full moon and a vessel to house the werewolf curse. The elders agreed, and rains came from the heavens, saving the land. They flourished, but soon terror hit the village. The werewolf came one night, claiming a soul, and every full moon after that. "The villagers will find out your sick and twisted plans. We will make sure of that," Kofi shouted. "Ask yourselves, if things were this bad, why do the villagers stay?" The old woman smiled. "The elders always make sure there is a sacrifice for the werewolf, a man or woman lured from another village, never to be seen again." The young men were in shock. "So the villagers knew all this?" Chijioke whispered. "Yes, they do, and they play along," the old woman confirmed. Mubarak felt his legs weaken and supported himself against a rock. "You, my children, are not related by blood. You were taken from 3 separate villages. The legend of the triplets is a made-up story. The werewolf is too powerful for 1 or 2 fighters. It was decided that when the time came to pass on the werewolf curse, 3 skilled warriors would take him on." Mubarak sat down, now fully weak in the knees. The revelation was more than the young men could handle. This was a criminal operation, with the villagers sacrificing outsiders for their gain. How had they missed every sign, the fake smiles, the fake adoration? There was silence as the brothers contemplated. "So who will get the curse next?" Chijioke asked, breaking the silence. "The one who dealt the final blow," the old woman said matter-of-factly. The brothers looked at Mubarak, who now stood next to them, with a determined look on his face. "How do we get rid of the curse?" Mubarak asked, veins in his head straining with anger. "You do not," she said, laughing. "The village relies on the curse to thrive. My advice to you is to not think about yourselves, but about the greater good of the village. Lay your lives down. It is for the greater good." She motioned for the men in the shadows to come forth. Among them was their mentor. The young men readied themselves to fight. Mubarak charged at the old woman, aiming for her heart, but his attempts were blocked. The battle was fierce. Kofi, with his precise strikes, engaged the men who had been lurking in the shadows. Chijioke used his knowledge of their weaknesses to exploit any openings. Mubarak, fueled by rage and determination, kept attacking the old woman. Kofi fought off 2 men, disarming one and knocking the other out cold. Chijioke used his agility to evade and counterattack, quickly overpowering his opponent. Meanwhile, Mubarak continued to press the old woman. She was skilled and dodged his strikes with surprising speed. Their mentor stepped in, trying to separate the brothers, but Kofi and Chijioke double-teamed him. Using their combined skills, they managed to disarm and subdue him, though they were both injured in the process. Finally, Mubarak saw an opening. With a powerful lunge, he drove his weapon into the old woman's chest. She gasped, her eyes wide with shock and anger, and fell to the ground. "You have ruined everything. Look what you have done," she said, her voice fading as she expired. The brothers, bloodied and battered, stood victorious but deeply shaken. They had uncovered the dark truth and ended the immediate threat, but the cost had been high. As they looked at each other, they knew their journey was far from over. The next morning, the brothers returned to the village. The elders were surprised to see them. Only the elders knew the secret, and the villagers were in the dark about the details. When the truth was revealed, the villagers were horrified by the deception that had been perpetuated for generations. Recognized now as true heroes, the brothers decided to dismantle the corrupt system that had allowed the curse to thrive. They knew they had to wait for the next full moon to be sure the curse was truly broken. When the full moon came, Mubarak willingly entered a heavily fortified room to ensure no one would be hurt if he transformed. The night passed in anxious silence. The next morning, the brothers were overjoyed to find Mubarak unchanged. The curse had truly been broken. With the curse lifted, the next season brought abundant rains, and the village flourished. Although they could not find their families of origin, the brothers knew they were bound by something stronger than blood. They were brothers, and they would remain so until the end. And that, my dear tribe members, is the end of our werewolf story. In the last episode, some of you guessed correctly who would get the werewolf curse. It's always fun to get your thoughts and input on a story. Thank you for joining us. And as always, thank you for watching our story, and we hope you enjoyed it. What lessons did you draw from this story? Share your thoughts with us in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe and be part of the tribe. Thank you for watching The Tales of the Savannah. We will see you next time in the Savannah.